Hey guys, Matt McKeever here with Michael Rosehart, and today we're going to be talking about the Millennial homebuyer video that's been kind of going viral. It was produced by CBC and it's been all over Facebook and all over your different social medias. And we thought it'd just be kind of fun to sit down and kind of parse out some of the info related to this video. So without that, we're going to get into it, start watching it, and I think we're just going to watch and pause it as we go through it. And yeah, you'll hear our opinions.
Hi, excuse me, hi. I'm here for the open house.
I'm sorry. Serious buyers only.
I am serious.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just not used to seeing people your age at these things.
I'd even pause it right there.
Yeah.
Serious buyers only. They're making fun of the fact that millennials can't afford homes just because of his age. They assume that he can't afford homes, but we're both examples that I have 12 properties.
Yeah, I have 13. We never got the memo that millennials weren't allowed to buy rental properties or properties to live in general. And at the same time, like, this kind of cuts both ways, because there are often, like, at open houses, a lot of tire kickers and stuff, and like, I think you could argue either side for this video, because if the dude can't afford the property, then he is kind of a tire kicker and not a serious buyer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't judge a book by its cover, because definitely if me or Michael were to show up in an open house, we'd be treated with the exact same kids' gloves, I think, that he's experiencing.
Oh, I can't tell you how frustrating it is as a young millennial to walk into any type of situation where you're bidding on a property or you're going to an open house, and the first thing they think is, wow, this guy's not a qualified home buyer because of his age, right? That's a bit ageist. I don't like that. I don't like the stigma that's associated as a millennial. I think that if millennials as a whole were more financially responsible, this wouldn't be an issue. I guess as you have more time to accumulate wealth, the assumption would be that you had more wealth.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where that's coming from, and it's a fair, justified assumption for the agent to make, but one that I think for us is
we frequently ran into.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're looking for?
Well, I've been stacking my money in large amounts. 5 figures in the bank, man, it's hard to count. I've been dreaming about a kitchen with the marble counters. I'm about to get all up into the market now and put a down payment on a crib. Get a wife, get a dog, get a couple kids. Get a pot of white paint for the picket fence. Dodge Caravan whip with the limo tint.
So I think just pausing right here where they're going through the white picket fence scenario is interesting to me, simply because he's never even talking about how that's really what he wants. It really sounds more like he's just marking off a checklist of expectations that, if I had to argue, I don't think your average young 22-year-old even necessarily needs or wants to be checking off all those boxes immediately the moment they join the workforce. Unlike probably a lot of millennials, he does reference the fact that he has saved up 5 figures, which is great, for his down payment. But then he starts listing off all these unrealistic expectations, like marble counters and just all these different things that aren't, at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, a house is just another type of tool, really, right? It's shelter. That's all it technically needs to be. It doesn't need to be your ego personified in material form. Any thoughts on that? Or
thinking back, like, I don't know what age he is, but when I was 22, it was only 3 years ago. I wanted the family and the picket fence and all of these things because I believe that it.
And did you need it right away? You got it right away, but I would argue that that's maybe more because your situation allowed it, right? Like, because you had created.
I set this as a goal, right? And I thought this is what I need to be happy, right? And having made it to that stage, right? I have a daughter, I have the wife, I have a beautiful house. It doesn't make you any happier. I have the granite countertops, and they get dirty just like laminate countertops, and actually probably even harder to clean and maintain. So I would argue that there's a perception that having this checklist of items makes you successful in society, will make you happier than you are now. I don't know that there's any research that suggests that you are actually any happier with those things on that checklist. Oftentimes, I think what people will find is when they get to that situation and they get into all that debt and they have that nice big house, they're actually more unsatisfied than they thought they would be, and even more unsatisfied than they were before. But yeah, it is interesting that millennials today want, and I talk to a lot of my friends who are millennials, and they say, they want what their parents had. And they're envisioning when their parents were like in their 30s or 40s, thinking they need that right away at 22 years old.
Because that's part of the problem. Like, by the time you have memories of what your parents were doing and how they were living, they were actually a lot older than you at your early 20s, most likely, right? Like,
exactly. Great points. I think that it is interesting that he saved 5 figures. I don't know what his age is, but let's say he's like 25 or 27. that's a good start that he's been saving.
No, absolutely, and like that's to be commended, and that's
yeah,
awesome.
Definitely.
But yeah, I just found it interesting.
Caravan whip with the limo tits. See, I wanna ball out with the hot.
Because even right there, with the whip, the caravan whip, and stuff like that, and the hot tub, it's like none of those actually tie into the house per se, right? Like that's not like because you want those things, that's a trade-off, right? You can't have everything. No one gets everything.
He's like, I want everything. I want the champagne and the hot tub and the nice whip and the nice house and the family and the dog and everything else. Yeah, you can't live like a baller and have any financial, well, you won't be financially savvy.
Yeah, the overhit's going to crush you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly at a young age. Like when you're young, you're most agile, right? Like you have the most flexibility, and so it's a great time to like test things out, learn new things, experiment with where you live. You don't have to live exactly in the same neighborhood your parents lived in, right? And you got to remember too that whatever neighborhood you grew up in, let's say you did grow up in Toronto, your parents still bought in the suburbs. It turned the burbs kept growing and growing, so now it doesn't feel like they're in the suburbs. But at the time, they were buying far away from downtown as well, right? Like from their perspective. So the fact that you're maybe having to go further out into the burbs, even though it might result in a net longer commute than what your parents experienced, it's still actually more apples to apples than you trying to buy into their old suburb, which is actually now considered more urban than suburban.
Another thing too, I want to like slap the face of every millennial pretty much out there on YouTube watching this. A lot of millennials today, I think, have this expectation that they should live this great life right away. And if you go back and put yourself in the shoes of our grandparents at that age, they were struggling just to get by. They were working very hard. They didn't have these kinds of luxuries. And what makes you think you're entitled to have these luxuries that our parents couldn't afford? I think a lot of people say the millennials are an entitled generation. I think we all need a slap in the face and a reality check that maybe we don't need these things. And if we actually were toned down our lifestyle and our expectations, we'd have a lot more freedom, a lot more time, a lot more happiness.
Yeah, and it really just comes down to perspective, right? Like there's so many changes going on, and like nothing stays static. And the thought that like the Canadian dream or the American dream should be a static thing that never changes or evolves is also unrealistic. We live in a universe of finite resources, right? Like dynamics are going to change, technology changes.
Agreed, 100%. He could maybe even have 6 figures if he's say 27 years old or something. The way he looks in this video, maybe he could have even 6, well into the 6 figures if he had been saving more aggressively, like someone who follows Mr. Ray Mustache or one of those frugality blogs.
Any spot that I caught, bet it got shrugged. Gold seats all heat up in the ensuite. See, I wanna ball out with the hot tub. Any spot that I caught, bet it got shrugged. Gold seats all heat up in the ensuite. Smart home light switches always on fleek. Got the fridge with the doors with the crushed ice. New pipes so I never have to flush twice. I'm talking more bathrooms in a rec center. Solid oak door, man, it couldn't get better. So what you got from me?
Well, judging by these financial numbers here.
And so right there, that's one of the things where I'm honestly not sure who this video is speaking for on behalf of, because like it definitely does feel like they're making fun of millennials and their expectations towards what they should have. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people are actually using this video as like a rallying cry to how unfair society or the world or Canada is right now, or the real estate market in particular. And I don't get it. Like if you want to project and say like things are unfair, it's unfair that I can't go buy a house, my dream house, blah blah, that's fine, but you're giving away your circle of influence, your control over the situation. The moment you give up personal control of the situation, you've lost. Because now everyone else gets to dictate what happens because you've given up personal responsibility for it. I think that's what's really concerning, is that a lot of people are going to watch this video and just kind of look at it and be like, yeah, you can't buy a house, they're right.
And then use it as, like you said, like a rally cry for how unfair society is today and how the economy is not fair. And, and they'll reference the bad times of 2008. Well, hey, let's go back. There's been a recession every 10 years since like the 1800s, right? There's always been a crisis. There's always been something that's helped build back. And if you look at the statistics, me and Matt, just before this video, we were looking at some data. And if you look at the actual spending on, for instance, apparel and clothing, we're spending something like 1/3 what we did as a percentage of our income, even 50 or 100 years ago. The cost of food has dramatically decreased as a percentage of our budget.
And meanwhile, our quality is technically increased, right? Or at least our access to quality foods. Particularly in Canada, we're getting fresh fruit. Like, I can literally remember my parents talking about at Christmas getting oranges and about how that was a treat. I have oranges go bad in my fridge now because I don't eat them fast enough.
It's a
Like,
bag of,
that's how
sloppy
cheap they are.
oranges.
You're like, oh, I'm going to buy the 5-pound bag because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat 5 pounds of oranges before they go bad.
Exactly. We're in a blessed time. If you look back 50 or 100 years ago, it was impossible to live on 20 or 30% of your salary. It's very doable today to live a modest life, you know, not eat out and have $19 avocado toast
Yeah.
or Starbucks every day. But if you live how our grandparents lived, you know, eating
Yeah.
similar, probably even nicer foods than they did, more healthy foods than they did, you'll actually spend less as a percentage than they did. So people argue, you know, we're not making enough today to sustain this lifestyle. Well, the truth is we're not making enough to sustain this increased lifestyle, this lifestyle inflation that's now become an expected sort of like a given.
Yeah, and it really feels like we keep cherry picking the best of everything, right? Because we want the best of everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, like our parents got houses maybe at a younger age, so I want that. But I want my house to be triple the size of their house as well and have all kinds of amenities that their house could never dream of. And it's like, well, that's not apples to apples at all either. Like, it's completely ridiculous.
The average house is what, 3 times what it was like 70 years ago? People had 2 bedrooms and 8 kids. Now we have like
8 bedrooms and 2 kids.
Exactly, the exact opposite. And so of course we can't have, you know, our cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You can't have the nice whip and go out to dinner every day and then hit up Starbucks on the way to work and then eat out for lunch and everything else and expect you're going to be able to afford all of these things. It's just not possible, even with dual income.
Absolutely.
It's like there's no way you can afford anything close to that. Ever. But
Ever?
come with
That's a
me,
bit dramatic.
And so just for that, you can't afford it ever. That can also be true. I'm probably never going to be able to buy the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's just something I'm probably not going to have the resources to do. Should I be able to buy the Toronto Maple Leafs? I don't think so. I don't think everyone should. Like,
no, exactly. Yeah, maybe he'll never be able to afford a lifestyle. I think ever's a bit dramatic. I believe that everyone has the chance to sort of.
I think everyone has the opportunity to become a homeowner.
Yeah.
In Canada, I think literally everyone that decides that they want to do it, because you just declare bankruptcy, start over, and I think within 10, 15 years, you could easily be there regardless of your previous circumstances, right? That's the beauty of not having debt obligations follow you forever. Except student loans.
I do think that if, for instance, myself, if I wanted all of those things in this video, and I decided to work my entire life till I was like 60 or 65, you know, it's very reasonable that I can have all those things, but I'd have to work for 40 years.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, hey, millennials out there, hey, people watching, there are other options. You can actually retire from your job in your 20s and have a modest lifestyle instead of having to work your entire life to chase this dream that's going to make you happy.
Yeah, so you can either grind for the rest of your life to buy that amazing house in downtown Toronto, or you can move out and retire at 24 in London, Ontario. I mean,
the air's
London's not that bad.
Forest City, I mean,
right?
It's a beautiful day. I can't complain.
Take something a little closer to your price range.
So you're telling me I can't afford hardwood? Well, what about the yard and the 2-car garage? Could I get a little loan from the bank still? Nope. What's 10% of 1.5 mil? Maybe I could crowdsource a little cash from a kickstart. This chart says I can't afford it in the rich part. Tell me I don't have to get a house out where the hicks are. No one ever told me getting property was this hard. Look, if I save for the rest of my life at the rate that I'm earning, I wouldn't come close. In the 80s, my dad bought a house and a car. I'll be 80 when I can get those. My mom's always calling like, why are you still renting? I hate to see all of that money you're spending. I'm good with my money. I practice frugality. Half the down payment is double my salary.
I heard the word frugality in there, but I missed the whole thing. It's interesting because he talks about, you know, living at work and working very hard.
And that he's good with frugality, but his mom mentions how she hates to see him waste money on renting. Do you want to?
So yeah, I can poke at that. Anyone who's reasonably creative, you know, hardworking or somewhat intelligent can find another option to the expensive renting in downtown Toronto. I know several people in Toronto who are able to rent. Imagine if you rented, for instance, a 4-bedroom property or something for, say, even in Toronto, you know, $3 or $4 grand a month, and you took the smallest room for yourself and rented the other rooms for, you know, market value. You can almost live at nothing if you've got a 5-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house. I know a lot of people in London who rent 4 or 5-bedroom houses for a discount, and the landlord's happy to have
one party that they deal with.
that pays them rent once a month, and then you take on, as the person who signed the lease, the responsibility of subletting all of the rooms to friends or folks on Kijiji at market value. What you find is that if you do it by the room, you take the smallest room, you can actually live for free or even make a little bit of money sometimes. Or get your rent costs way, way down to the point where, you know, even if you don't have the money for a down payment, you can get your housing cost to almost nothing. probably the same as living in your parents' basement without having to suck your parents.
That stigma, yeah. And in addition to that, like, even if you're not going to subsidize and like live rent free by, you know, rent hacking, let's call it, you still, renting isn't a waste of money, right? It's just like, you don't consider it a waste of money when you go buy groceries. It's not like, I can't believe you're wasting money on groceries instead of going to buy a farm, right? Like, do you say that? No one literally ever says that. Or I can't believe you're wasting money by buying a car instead of buying GM stock. And then, you know, like, it's that sort of thing where it's just, again, like, it's a type of tool, it's shelter. We all need a type of shelter, and so you're going to allocate some resources towards that shelter. Just because you're renting it versus owning it doesn't inherently make it a worse investment. And you can find all sorts of articles throughout the early retirement community where people discuss the rent versus buy calculators, and frequently, particularly in major metro environments, it's way cheaper. I would never want to be a landlord of condos in downtown Toronto because you're subsidizing your tenants' living, right? Like,
I know people in Toronto who own properties and they're like, yeah, I'm only losing $400 a month. I'm like, your cash flow is negative? Why? Oh, appreciation. You know, it's going to appreciate. I'm going to share an example as well. You guys are looking around, you're seeing the houses here. I'll give you an example. It's actually cheaper to rent here than it is to own.
Yeah.
My neighbor rents this house over here for $1,700 all inclusive a month.
Oh, wow.
Which is actually a really good deal. The landlord's from Toronto. He's cool with the break-even thing.
Yeah.
My mortgage, property taxes, all the utilities, cost of maintenance and everything else adds up to more than $1,700, even after you take out principal.
And that's with you being frugal too.
And I'm frugal. So someone who, you know, who lived more
utilities
lavishly,
inclusive, so they don't really care. Yeah.
Exactly.
They don't burn through those utilities.
I could rent the same 4-bedroom, 4-bath house for cheaper than I could own it, and that's including the mortgage paydown. So you're not really throwing money away. I mean, property taxes, utilities, maintenance, all of these things that don't go towards mortgage interest.
Yeah.
None of those things go towards you building any wealth, right?
Absolutely. And so if you're saving the difference, it can be as advantageous or more so to rent. And like, I really do think we do need to move away from it. Maybe we're mildly biased because we're landlords, but legit, I think that there's situations where my tenants are doing better off because they're renting from me versus stretching themselves too thin. Because you also got to remember, like, there is like a little mental tax too, right, for owning the property. You have all the maintenance to do, and just like, you have concerns. You can't, if you decide to, like, you want to go and take a job for 6 months in Calgary just as an experiment, you have all sorts of obligations to sort out, whereas if you're renting, you just give your 2 months notice and you're gone.
Freedom. I actually have dreamed of that sometimes. I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be so nice if I didn't have all these properties, if I had the freedom to just rent, and I could probably live just as cost effectively as I do now.
Absolutely.
In a similar quality house. So yeah, check out the rent versus buy calculator. We can leave it in the comments for you guys.
Absolutely.
I need help, I can't do it alone. I got student loans to pay, my cubicle's home. I'm working 80-hour weeks, man. I live at the office, and to be honest, I thought that I had a lot in my pockets, enough to get me in my dream.
And so I just want to even circle back there to the point that he's working 80 hours a week. Let's take this at face value and say he actually is working 80 hours a week. It's a shit ton of work. And so
2 full-time jobs,
right?
By the way,
yes. And so, like, if you're actually doing that, why do you even want to dream home if you're never going to spend any time there? And if the only way you can almost get the dream home is by working it, is that part of your dream, working to death in order to have something that you can't enjoy?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's worth it. And I think when people get into the dream home and he's realizing he's working 80 hours a week and then the commute and everything else, he's going to say, wow, holy shit, this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Excuse my French. Another point I want to hit up here, he was on the phone with his mom before, and she was saying, I hate to see you throw money away at rent.
Yeah.
If you look at a percentage of what he makes, likely he's 80-hour weeks, he's probably in Toronto or some major metropolitan,
absolutely.
I assume. Likely he's making quite a bit of money, at least slightly above average, I would assume, in a metropolitan like Toronto. As a percentage of what he spends, I bet you his rent is less than a quarter of what he's spending. Like 3/4 of his budget is probably entertainment, eating out, those nice luxuries.
Absolutely.
So that's really where, like, it's hard for his mom to say, hey, I want to see you stop going to Starbucks. When really that's costing him $6 a day and like thousands a year, right?
Yeah.
Almost as much as a few months' rent. Keep playing.
I need help, I can't do it alone. I got student loans to pay, my cubicle's home. I'm working 80-hour weeks, man. I live at the office, and to be honest, I thought that I had a lot in my pockets, enough to get me in my dream home. Dream homes always come with hidden fees, though. Mortgages, they never leave like a disease, so to get the keys and the deed, you're gonna need dough.
Here we are. This is what we in the industry refer to as a fixer. And the best part is this place is right in your price range. So, what do you think?
I find it a little bit interesting. They go in the, if you look at the house on the side of the video, it looked like it was like actually a decent sized house, but they went in the back like addition to like make it seem
Look
that
even
much worse.
shadier, but yeah, it's one of these things too where throughout the video, once they kind of have the dream home and then this really shitty dilapidated fixer-upper. You know, like if this is in his price range, you also can't argue with economic fundamentals, right? Like if this is legit what you can afford, you have to decide, is affording that or renting, which is more favorable to you, right? I don't like just the idea that you're going to argue with economic fundamentals just blows my mind, because like reality is being upset about it isn't going to impact anything. It's not going to help you at all. Becoming a victim does not help you.
Likely the reason he can only afford this house though too is because he's been spending so poorly in the last several years.
Most
all
likely,
he has
right?
Is 5 figures saved.
Yeah.
If he had more saved, you know, likely his income isn't a problem for the mortgage. It's probably his savings that are the problem. If he had saved just more and lived more frugally, he'd be able to afford a better house. So it's almost, I almost think he's blaming the market. Like a lot of us in life in general, I know you talk to people, and what you find is people like to take accountability for their successes. They like to blame external factors when something,
the failures.
Exactly. So they say, oh, it's the economy's fault. You know, my parents had a much better economy to work in, and oh, you know, it's my education was so expensive, and it wasn't so expensive in the old days, and oh, this or that. Or the housing market's too hot right now. I can't afford a house.
And even if that's all true, so what?
Right? Take control of your environment, work a little bit harder, save a little bit more, and you'll be able to counteract that.
And figure out truly what your priorities are, right? Like, has this guy sat down and thought about, hey, if I move to London, Ontario, I can work 40 hours a week, own the dream home, and have quality of life. Are the amenities, is the lifestyle in Toronto that much better that you'd rather work twice as much to have nothing versus come to London? Like, it blows my mind.
Me too. Yeah, it's the same reason that after Ivy, I didn't go to Toronto when most of my classmates went right to Toronto or Vancouver and the major hubs like New York. I just didn't see the lifestyle to be. I actually found it like less appealing, but I can understand the allure of, you know, the big city when you're young. At the same time, there's ways to do it frugally. There's
absolutely.
lots of places you can read about, you know, on Reddit, for instance, where people are living very affordably in these large metropolitans, and they're getting ahead. Another point I want to make quickly, well, it was fresh on my tongue. People often like to, you know, cite, you know, the economy or like inflation or, you know, interest rates, or I'm not getting a high enough return on my investment as the source of their lack of wealth. I think the lion's share of, you know, our wealth has been from saving and living frugally, right? So just saving a large percentage of your income, regardless of the financial environment, will get you wealthy. That's just that's what it is.
If you're not saving, if you're not investing, if you're not building something, I don't know how a person can have the expectation to become wealthy. It just is.
Obviously, this is a joke, right? Obviously, this is a joke, right? You couldn't pay me to stay here a whole night. I can smell mold, I can see the old pipes, and it feels like the floor kinda slopes right. All the decors from before the Cold War, chip lead paint all up on these old doors. Every time I inhale, all I get is mold spores, and the next door neighbor's got a cold sore. Oh my god, ew. It's like a block from the freeway, sound keeps coming, and the drywall's wet. I bet it got weak plumbing, and the floorboards creak, and the carpet's all reeked. Plus I found a cockroach in this antique oven.
Come on.
So I just want to stop there about, they're kind of listing all the things that are wrong with this fixer-upper. And one of the things he touches on is a cockroach in the oven. I recently just moved into one of my rental properties. It's a 4-plex here in London. And when we bought it, we ripped out the main floor kitchen. I'd never seen a cockroach before in my life. Cockroaches everywhere. But you fix up the place and you move in and there's no more cockroaches. And now I live there. Like, I don't...
The thing I think too is, you know, a lot of people in today's society are, you know, especially with, you know, scrolling through Facebook, are very negative, and there's a lot of negativity, right? People are focusing on barriers to entry as opposed to opportunities for entry, is what I call them. So I look at like a house like that, a lot of these problems you might list, right, that seem like unsolvable, they're actually
very easy part. Like bad carpet, okay, replace the carpet. You know, like the floor slopes left, okay, my floor slope in my place that I'm living, right? Like, it doesn't actually impact the quality of my living at all. The house is still structurally sound. It's just a century home that's settled a bit.
Or even like worst case scenario, you could just shim and put a new subfloor. Like it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
A couple grand, you could fix that.
Yeah, absolutely. But if I shim the floor, it would hide the beautiful old historic hardwood that creaks when I walk on it. But that's history, guys. Like everything, like
one man's trash, another man's treasure, right?
Yeah, it's all about perspective. Like either you could complain about how my floors are crooked and they're all scuffed and old, or you could talk about the history about how it's a century-old home and that like people lived there 100 years ago and just enjoy the character that comes with that. It's just like you can either be angry or happy about the exact same set of facts, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that, in my opinion, if I was him, I might take this as an opportunity. What kind of deal can I get on this property?
Yeah.
Could I take a couple $100,000 off the asking price because of all these problems?
Mm-hmm.
When really I could get all those problems resolved for maybe 25 or 50,000 and a bit of hard work. Boom! I just created $150,000 in value.
Right.
That's a huge opportunity.
You can maybe scale back to 40 or 50 hours a week at the office and play around on this new property, right? Like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, do you have somewhere else you can show me? I can't buy this house, it's just way too embarrassing. Cause $3,000 a month for my rent is too much. I refuse to move back with my parents. In my 20s, what year is it?
I want to circle even to this, just the idea of moving back in with your parents as being like this true kiss of death. First of all, I don't think it's that bad for multifamily living. Like, if you all get along, there should be no shame in that, to me, from my perspective. Like, it's efficient use of resources. I love efficiently using resources. So the idea of moving in with your parents, I don't think should have this huge stigma. And until very recently in North America, it was by far, like, you stayed at home until you got married and then you create your own nest, right? But like, we often see it with a lot of different immigrant families now where they live multifamily living, and I think a lot of them are better for it. Like, I think they're able to save and they create a lot of wealth, and that's why you often see the first generation of immigrants and second gen build up these huge quantities of resources, these huge savings and investments, is because they're willing to make sacrifices that I don't even think are that sacrificial. Like, if you're a family-oriented person and you enjoy your family, the idea of being around them a bit more often or living with them shouldn't be that abhorrent that it's a life failure.
Yeah, definitely. I wish I could have lived at home earlier. I moved away and I didn't go back home, but I kind of almost wish I did, because I would have been a lot further ahead financially.
Absolutely.
I do think, though, the one point that I don't think it's right that parents have to carry the burden of supporting their children.
It doesn't have to be, like, you can chip in, right? Like, I have a friend that still lives at home now, but he essentially picks up most of the bills, and like, it's just a give and take relationship. I lived with my parents until I was almost 25, and again, it was just a give and take relationship. But like, why not if you're able to do it? And yeah, I don't know.
Totally, I would totally live at home. I try to contribute to the house in some way.
Yeah, that's the key.
So
you don't have to be a leech.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm not promoting that in any way, but at the same time, there's ways to create a win-win with your family, right?
Look for the win-wins.
Yeah, like maybe there's an unfinished basement. Okay, like maybe you paid to renovate it into a nice apartment, and then you live there rent-free for a while because you paid for the renovations. Then afterwards, you move out into your own place. Your parents now have an income suite to help them in their retirement, right? Like,
that's a win-win.
There's amazing opportunities there. People are willing to be a little creative and not come to the table with preconceived notions. Just be open to all options and then narrow down based on what your true needs are.
I'll give you an example. Like, in my own personal life, it's the opposite for me. So my mom needs somewhere to live. So I'm in the new duplex we're moving into. It's a semi-duplex. So it's already attached on one side, and we converted the semi into a duplex.
Yeah.
And now I've got a shed in the back, a 12 by 12 shed with a nice vaulted ceiling. I'm going to finish it, run hydro and everything to it, and put a toilet in it, and make it a bunkie house, tiny house living.
Yeah.
So I've now turned a duplex into a triplex, and I'm maximizing the use of my land to allow my mom to live there for virtually nothing, and she's contributing to the household, and it's just our net as a family is so much.
Yeah, you're better for it, right? Yeah.
It's serious, I can't believe that I'm hearing this. Can't buy a house in my 20s, what year is this? Am I supposed to just rent till I die? I've got savings, okay, I'm a sensible guy. Respectable job with a 401k.
So I just wanted to pause there and just talk about referencing a 401k. This to me, like, and I don't know, like maybe CBC just wanted to go viral and stuff worldwide, so people understand what a 401k is better than an RSP or TFSA, and fair enough, but I just found it kind of funny that a CBC produced content.
Canadian produced show is referencing the 401k instead of the RSP.
Because you're not helping Canadians understand what's going on.
I don't think that was the intent of the video.
No, I'm just joking.
They deserve a slap for that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Another quick tip for guys who have RRSPs here in Canada, or 401ks, I'm sure there's an equivalent program in the US. But in Canada, you can actually, if you're a first-time home buyer, access and tap into your RRSP with an interest-free withdrawal loan from there to buy the first property. So if he has savings there, maybe his 5K or 5-figure savings could be combined with his 401k if you got creative, and he can maybe afford a little bit nicer fixer-upper, closer to work or something.
I purchase this house, I'll be borrowing change to get on the bus. That's not a good vision. Okay, I think I made my decision.
Mom, Dad, I'm moving back in.
This isn't permanent, is it?
Just smile and wave, honey.
Can someone give me a hand with this couch? My back. Dad, you're gonna have to do the heavy lifting for me. I threw it out again. Mom, put on a hot water bottle and give me some Robax. Come grab this couch. It's gonna fall.
I love that the parents, just like quick comment here, the parents are unhappy that he's moving back home because they're going to have to, it seems like most likely support him.
Yes.
I think that if he was coming back home and offering the proposition of, hey, I'd like to contribute $1,000 a month towards the housing expenses or some number that made sense, or like, hey, I'm going to pay half the mortgage or something, his parents would be ecstatic to see him come home and see him save and get ahead.
Yeah, like if honestly the mom's goal is to see her son own the McMansion, like this is going to help achieve that, and I think that's pretty much at the end of the video. So just any general things you want to talk about then based on this video, or?
Yeah, I think we've got to some of the points, but it just, to me, seems, I think the biggest problem with our generation, the millennial generation, is that they don't want to take accountability for their own success, failures, I guess. They like to take accountability for their successes. But we all have this belief that we should have these amazing vacations, 5 to 4 times a year, and this amazing lifestyle, and have avocado toast.
And so that's the big problem, right? Like on your social media, you follow one friend that travels all the time. You follow one friend that has the picket white fence and that McMansion, and then you follow the friend that's always Instagramming every meal at the highest end restaurants. Like the friend that's doing the restaurants isn't doing the McMansion photos because they don't have the McMansion. The travel friend isn't doing the Instagram food photos because they're traveling. Like we want literally the best of every slice of life and combine it together. And the problem is we have this information to literally every type of life now, and we're pulling from the top 1% from every fragment and then think we should somehow be able to cobble that together into a perfect life.
It's just not realistic.
Yeah.
It's just not realistic. And people need to save. Like, if you're out there and you're saving less than 10% of your income, I think we should talk. Reach out to us and we can help you to carve out a little bit more in savings and to help you get ahead. And if one of your goals is to create freedom for yourself and time to pursue those things through financial independence. Both Matt and I are financially independent, and so we love the lifestyle, and we'd love to share more about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we're doing these videos, to just document, like, people are doing it, it is real. We both loved the Mr. Mustache and Early Retirement Extreme forums and just a blog post in general. And that's great, but there's something really special about meeting people in your own community that are actually doing it. And that's partially why we found London on Fire, was to create that sense of community and really ground it in reality. And so if you're in driving distance to London, you should definitely check us out. And if you're not, you should seek out on these different forums if there are meetups in your area, and if there aren't, create them. Ground reality for yourself, right? Meet people that are actually taking control, they're taking responsibility, and they're trying to move forward rather than just living in a quagmire of poor me.
Exactly. And I think we live what we're preaching here, in that because we're financially independent, we don't have all that huge lifestyle that they're talking about, and we've chosen to not have those things so that we can have time and freedom. I think the sense of community is really, really key. Matt made that point. If you can surround yourself with 5 or 10 people that are who you want to be, who you want to become, you will become them. There's a quote, something like, you're the average of your 5 or 10.
The 5 people you spend most time with. And so you need to be aware of your influences, right? So spending all day watching viral videos about poor me isn't going to help you, right? And commenting and getting angry, a
cycle of downward spiral.
It creates an echo chamber, right? Whoever you surround yourself with is going to create an echo chamber. So just be really aware of that. But so I think that kind of is it for this video. Thanks again for taking the time. That's it for this video, guys. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this video. Until next time, I'm Matt McKeever.
And I'm Michael Rosehart, and we're Mike and Matt on Fire.
Works for me. Sweet. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Can someone give me a hand with this couch?
There we go.